Hi, I'm Barbara Guantai for My Country, My Continent. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I'm excited to be here. In previous videos, I kept intimating that I will be joined by professionals as we talk about narratives, as we talk about debunking myths, and as we talk about mental health. Now, today I'm joined by Wanjiru Mbogori, someone I deeply respect and who I believe innately is gifted, on top of being professionally trained and having extensive experience in the world of psychosocial support. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you.
I know I've missed a lot. I would really, really love for you to share with us what you do in that space, as in their titles there. So let us begin somewhere. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Barbara. And it's not really about titles. What I am is a mental health therapist, specialized in trauma, but in the, more geared toward children and adolescents. But really, that's kind of just a title bit. Otherwise, I do see everyone.
Okay.
And I also see addiction patients or people struggling with alcoholism or addiction of one sort or the other, but
Okay.
mainly the substances that cause mind-altering moods.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Sorry. You have already broken down addiction. I believe in demystifying literally everything that has to do with mental health. And mental health is so vast.
It is.
Today I'm representing a layman and someone who's experienced from this other side. And it is an honor to have you here. Sikupaki Mafuta. This is, and I'll tell you why. It is because I know you personally and you have helped me along, my journey of grief and loss and trauma. And I think the final point of arrival was to be about thriving.
Yes.
And it is a process, right, to get there in terms of healing and and figuring out who you truly are in the process.
Right.
I don't know if that has made sense, but I'll keep going. You talked about trauma and then childhood. In one of the videos, I touched on childhood trauma. So we'll talk about that later if you don't mind. What is psychosocial support?
Psychosocial, if I look at it, psychosocial is about your self. Psycho meaning the psychological aspect of it and the social part of it. So they go together. If you are well mentally, you're bound to be well physically and emotionally. It actually entails the physical, the emotional, the social, all those things that make you you. Those are the things we call psychosocial. So psychosocial support is about someone walking alongside you, not necessarily to give you advice, not necessarily to tell you, oh no, this is what you should be doing, but somebody who can help you actually question yourself and your motives for doing things the way you're doing them. Somebody who will fit into your shoes, but not necessarily fill them. Because it's not about me telling you who you are or what you want to be. It's eliciting it from you. So figuring out, who does Barbara want to be? Who is Barbara? How do you know Barbara? Yourself.
Wow. This is interesting. That has sparked so many things are happening in my mind right now.
Okay.
But let me see if I can narrow this down. Because as we said, and as I keep repeating all the time, we need to debunk myths and we need to query narratives. Narratives that are from external sources about ourselves. But there's something I discovered, that sometimes that external noise can become my internal voice.
Yes.
So you walk with me as I figure out what the lies are and what my truth is. Is that basically what you're saying? This is incredible.
Plus, when you say truth, if I can just jump in there, truth is not the truth you want me to hear, but it's the truth. What is the truth? Because you can walk with someone, but if you're not being honest with them, and you're not being honest with yourself, then you would be on a long journey that you may never get to the end of.
Oh my word.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
if I'm walking with you as a psychologist or a therapist or even as a friend, the truth you tell me is the truth that I will base whatever, say, eliciting of those questions comes from, or even helping in whatever way. We are in a helping profession. We are just like you go to a doctor and say, this is how I'm feeling, and because of what you tell the doctor is able to diagnose. Now, if I don't know the truth, then I will not know where to begin to help you. Because we have to come to a certain picture between us, that this is what I'm doing. You know, let's take addiction, for instance. If you come to me and say, people are telling me I'm addicted, and I know I'm not. Okay, so what does that tell me? I have to ask you, why are they saying addiction? What are you doing? How are you going about it? In that way, I'm able to figure out, okay, are you in denial? Are you telling me the truth or not? Because again, there's various things we look at. How are you looking at me? You're giving me the full eye, right? So I know that whatever, if you tell me something, I'm able to detect, oh, okay, so there, when she said this, this is what she did, this, that sort of thing. So it's not just what you say, but the whole body.
This is wow, wow. So
body language, in
but
other
that
words.
entails courage.
Absolutely.
Let's run to the cultural aspect of psychosocial support. Is culture important? Is it something you must look at as you are working with someone like me, or working with, I'm afraid of calling people patients.
Yes.
Clients?
Clients.
Okay.
It's good enough.
Yeah. Is culture an
It depends.
integral
I'm a
part of it?
clinical psychologist,
Nice.
so we used to have patients. But I prefer to say clients because that is less daunting for the people.
Absolutely.
Now, you talk about culture. Culture is important. As a therapist, and it's something I think and I hope every school teaches, and not always true because the school I went to taught, but I found I was with people who had no idea what I was talking about when it came to culture. Now, culture is important in the sense that it also informs you about who you are. It informs you about how to address people. For instance, if you were to look at a parent figure, culture teaches us here on this side of the world. Culture teaches us that person is just like a parent, your parent. So whatever you respect your called your parent, respect that person. Like, you know, there's things like names. You would never call a man your father's age by his name.
Or
Exactly. So that is where culture comes in. That it has brought you up. You've been informed about how to be and how to address things or address yourself to people because this is how it's done culturally. Now that can also can impede your growth.
absolutely.
You see,
I think so. I see you smiling,
yeah, because that's what you said. And
absolutely.
it can impede your growth in the sense that we're living in a global village, whether we like it or not.
Absolutely.
And whatever is out there also has a bearing on us here. So some of the things like culture, when you think about therapy, what did our older folk do?
Good question.
About therapy. Now, as you were growing up, who was meant to walk alongside you? Apart from your parents. You know, certain things, if I remember, were things that aunties taught you or aunties came into
extended family.
Extended family are there. And everyone has a role to play, which was brilliant. It was a brilliant setup. But because of the global village we live in and migrations from here to there, you've lived abroad, you've done this, you didn't live with any of your relatives.
No.
Right? Unless there was one somewhere distant, you know. And when we get out outside of our own country, we go outside, chances are you're going to also adopt that culture.
Absolutely.
So how do you then marry the two so that you're understood by someone?
Oh, you're so interesting. You've taken this on to
gone
another.
far.
You've just gone and
Sorry.
gone. No. Don't apologize because I will still try and keep my eye on the ball
Yeah.
on and on the goal. However, you've just sparked something in me. I do believe that I spent a lot of time or a long time in different cultures.
Exactly.
And yeah, I now I'm beginning to see where and how I did not fit in back home. And it was not because people didn't want me, it's because I'd adopted, something from the American culture, something from the French culture, something from, and then I didn't quite know where to place everything.
Yep.
This is incredible. Okay, fine, that's a segue. We'll come back to that.
All right.
The culture component that I'm also eyeing is some of our beliefs.
Yep.
And why I really needed to speak with you, first things first, I know you know, and I'll keep saying it every time, is I have insane respect for you. Crazy use of a word, surely,
Yes,
as we're talking about psychosocial stuff.
Yes.
The cultural beliefs that I feel do not necessarily allow us to seek the kind of psychosocial support that we require, yet you pointed out that we had systems that understood the need for support.
Exactly.
Isn't that weird? That we had those systems, and then now there's certain things you hear, beliefs. I'm too strong for that. I'm not crazy. When words like I call them buzzwords, mental health, are mentioned, you can almost see someone's mind running to a mental hospital. We think Madare. Let's truly be honest.
True.
And then what other descriptive words follow? It's weakness, broken, less, wrong, unwanted, crazy, collecting papers.
Right.
So you are removed from the pack, and technically one becomes afraid
Yes.
of seeking help. How do you traverse that terrain? It's help.
One word, stigma.
Yep.
That is where you're going.
Absolutely.
Because when you cannot sort yourself out, or you cannot get your auntie or uncle, whoever is near you, you don't take their advice. You see, there's a difference. I think culturally we tend to give more advice than listen. And this is the divide I find myself in, where somebody comes to you for therapy, for instance, and then says, why aren't you giving me advice? Because that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you unpack. Yes, the work is yours. I'm working alongside. And we find, like, I remember one of my first clients here who was struggling with addiction. We talked, and I took him back to his childhood. And at the end of it all, he says to me, why didn't you judge me? That is where sometimes we go with culture.
Absolutely.
That I see you staggering somewhere, I don't know why you have drunk, I don't know why you're that drunk, I don't know whether your drink was spiked. But somewhere along the way I say, oh, that drunkard. Never mind that I've seen you for the first time.
Yeah.
And so culturally, I do not think we allow our families to go wrong. There are these expectations. We are labeled, right?
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
So the expectation is I will raise my child will grow to be this, my child will grow to be that. At this point in time, they must get married. At this point in time, they must doing this. And sometimes what I'm placing on that child is my unmet needs.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So really, when it comes to culture, we need to understand, where are you coming from? What sort of culture have you been raised in? And I'll tell you, like you say, one of the things that popped in my mind when you were talking is people who work, like Kenyans who worked in the mental health institutions. And I've heard it here too, actually, because when I worked in rehab in Kikuyu, to find the place, I gave the name, no name was ringing anything. To the Boda guys I was asking, because I decided these are the guys who would know. So when one person said, oh, is it that place of mad people?
Yes.
Crazy people.
Yeah.
I said, okay. But you know what? They're not crazy.
Yeah. Oh.
They're not
for
crazy.
you.
But that is a place I'm looking for. So this guy happily rode in front of me so that I could get to the place. But this is the thing that I found, say, like with our Kenyans now describing the places they worked.
Yeah.
Because for them, that is what it is. Yet in mental health, we have psychosis,
Yeah.
which is what you take to Madari. We have mental health issues. Mental health issues are things that are little understood. So that if I come with a problem, then people look at me as, now who ni nani? What are you saying? This person is just playful.
Wow. Liz, the other day, I was in a vehicle and then I sat next to the driver. It was cold out. This guy, pick makaratasi, they're just pieces of cloth on his body. It's cold, and all I kept thinking was, what has happened to that brain that it is not getting, it's not sending the message to the body that it's really, really cold. It is time to cover up. And so, of course, mwenda wazimu, right? And I decided to rope in the driver into this thought process that had allowed. And I asked him, what do you think is that person's problem? You know what he told me?
Bangi.
No, he went even further. And he said, hii ni maneno ya kifamilia.
Yes.
So we're talking about curses. We're talking about, it's a wide world. I still believe, and I'm not talking about this or adding the cultural component from a judgmental point or perspective or place. It is, does it have a place at the table, and is it possible for we as a people to start querying our beliefs and understanding where they come from, our fear for addressing those unseen wounds. When did the stigma kick in? Yet we had support systems before that understood the need for support. Now, I know we are running out of time. We will have to continue this at another time, but please let us jump into addiction. Addiction, I have an issue with buzzwords or with words because I call it dependency. Now, can addiction today be linked to childhood trauma?
Absolutely.
Great. Complex?
Yes, how you are raised matters.
Okay.
If you have all the money in the world and you have all the things that you have that you would like, if while you're growing up, you say, Daddy, you know that big car, you know those things that cost about 45 to 60,000, they're motorized, and you just, they've got batteries, press, and the child believes they're driving this Porsche. And I mean, I have a problem with that. But anyway, you have all those things.
Yes.
And the child, whatever toy a child says in the shop, Daddy, Mommy, this gets. But when you're at home, you do not even play with that child. The child knows nothing about playing. The child knows nothing about sitting down and having a chat. What happens in the end? That craving sets in because we are relational.
Yeah.
We want to be able to relate to another human being. Warmth, love, everything comes from another human being.
Yes.
So if you're not getting that, what happens in the end? At the end of the day, you end up taking one drink, it feels good. That pain is not hurting anymore or as bad. Another drink to really just calm it down, and another one, and this becomes the issue,
Okay.
the addiction.
So addiction is technically an unmet need.
Absolutely. It comes, it generates. If you look at most people who struggle with addiction,
Yeah.
there is something, not necessarily in their childhood only, but there is something there that was unmet. And they had so much pain,
Yes.
they needed to numb that pain.
Absolutely.
How do you numb that pain?
You
Smoke,
reach out.
drink,
Yeah.
drugs, could be shopping, could be, I had a client who was struggling with addiction, but what would she do? Go and pickpocket, or go into a shop, try on something, put on their own and walk out, get caught,
and yet
come
they
back.
can afford.
And they can afford. And really, when I asked her, she said to me, it just felt good.
Yeah. So that's the rush. This is interesting, and I do believe that we need to continue with this conversation just to unpack a lot of that stuff. I'm excited. Should I say excited about delving into that world of addiction,
Yeah.
dependency
Right.
for me? Not so much because of what happens to someone who consumes, or who uses stimuli or stimulants to ease that pain, but because of the foundation. Where do these issues come from? And I believe we require both courage and compassion to at least address that. Because I do not believe in that whole Band-Aid thing. Stop drinking. No. Why don't we ask, why does this person drink that much?
Exactly.
Now, and you see, it's interesting because it's that cultural component, and stigma and all that, plus trauma, plus our background, childhood, how we were brought up, what we were exposed to, and the current events. And as you also said, it's not necessarily just what happened in childhood. It could be other things that follow, of course. Liz, thank you so much. I think we'll kind of leave it there. Hopefully we will continue with
We
this.
will
We have to.
continue.
We've just scratched the surface.
Mental health is such a wide
Yes,
field,
it is. Yes,
an
it is.
array
Yeah.
of ideas and thoughts and all, and schools of thought,
Indeed.
that you do need to take time.
Thank you so much for taking the time. You
Thank
had
you.
the time, so taking the time to chat with me. Actually, thank you for having me. And on a personal note, thank you so much for walking with me. I'm doing better. I'm doing great, aren't I?
Absolutely.
All right. This is incredible. Thank you so very much for joining us. I will include Wanjiru Mbogori's contacts and information in the link below. I wanted to give a very quick shout out to Triple P TV. That's where we're shooting at their studios. Incredibly talented young people who have seen the importance of psychosocial support in our country, in our continent, and have given us the space here to, conduct this, for me to conduct this interview, for us to have this chat.
Great. Thank you.
When I think Africa, I hear narratives, but I also hear power. I hear wealth, and I hear vision. I also hear the need to be courageous enough to say that we deserve the best of care in our psychosocial world. Mental health is about how we think, how we feel, and how we act. We are worthy of care. Care, like the kind Wanjiru Mbogori provides. Please push back, ask questions, subscribe, share, and remember that we are worthy of the best, and we can heal. Bye-bye. Thanks, Liz.
Karibu.